over a year. It's a group that's managing Lakota helicopter flights from San Diego all the way to Texas. The other group is helping specifically in Texas. But when I was down there, literally down there on Monday, Tuesday, getting interviewed by the national press, over my shoulder there was people wading across the Rio Grande, and I was getting questions about the swamp in DC in indictments. Well, there's people crossing the river behind it. So it's like we are with this administration, the Border Patrol, there's only 20,000. It's 19,855 authorized positions for the Border Patrol. They're not filled because they went into law enforcement to do law enforcement. Now they're actually doing paperwork as opposed to doing law enforcement.
Processors. Yeah, they're processors. That's all they're doing, right?
And not with computers, with paper.
With
paper.
Ridiculous.
And we're spending tens of millions a month to do the processing to move these folks into our country, which we'll never see. They get a court date 5 years from now. And then meanwhile, they don't have the material, the technology, or the equipment to actually do their job. And then the same administration, where I just said there's 20,000 Border Patrol for the whole country, including the 365 miles we have in North Dakota. And what
How many IRS agents did they bring in?
87,000
Okay,
they
here
want
we
to
go,
hire
right?
for that.
Yeah.
They want, it's like four
Priorities.
times what we have in the Border Patrol. So this is on a day one. If you give a group of law enforcement the support they need, if you give them the technology, you give them the staffing, you give them the material, they're going to be able to do the job. When I was talking to the Border Patrol people, they said, hey, we've done it before, we've controlled the border before, just give us a chance to do it.
To do our job, right? To do our job. I don't think the American people know either, Iowans, and I know, Governor Abbott sent out a request through EMAC to all of the Republican governors to consider sending at least 100 National Guard troops down to the border to help. But they had already allocated $4.5 billion, Texans, to do what the federal government should be doing, and I think went back to their legislature again this year and asked for another $5 billion. So think about that. What states are being asked to do because this administration won't do their job. It is ridiculous. So, when we talk about, you talk a little bit about China, but when we talk about the southern border, talk again about the precursor to the fentanyl is coming from China, the national security threat that poses. You want to talk a little bit about that too? I mean, again, we've got to figure out a way to stop that. I know Ambassador Branstad worked on that to really stop fentanyl coming into the States, but now that's gone, and here we go.
Well, absolutely, and what confirmed for me, and this wasn't my first trip down to the border this week, but we had the one sector we're in where the North Dakota National Guard, the young men and women there are helping out. 98 different countries, citizens had crossed 98 in the first 6 months. I mean, so this isn't just like, oh, people are coming over from Mexico. Syrians, Iranians, North Koreans, Russians, Chinese. I mean, so we people on terrorist watch lists are part of the group that are coming across the border right now, and this creates a threat. And then on the other side, literally across the river, they know which the cartels own those hubs. These are transnational criminal organizations that are super well funded. They've got drones, they've got intel, they've got staff. In one little sector we were in, they are estimating, based on the interviews of people coming across who'd been exploited, families saying, how much did you have to pay to try to get here? And it's, thousands of dollars per individual. So they estimate that in 1 week, the cartels had made $28 million of fees exploiting people that were trying to get into this country. And so they're better funded on that side in some cases than we're funding our own better Border Patrol here. And so it is, again, a complete abdication, dereliction of duty by the Biden administration to not be doing their number one job, which is national security.
Absolutely. So tell me, what's some things that you've learned as governor of the state of North Dakota and as a business owner that you could take, in the state system, that you could take some of those advantages to Washington, D.C. and implement in the first 100 days?
Well, I'd say the one thing we did in North Dakota is we just said, hey, we're going to treat taxpayers like customers. All of you pay taxes, you're paying for government. Government doesn't pay for itself, you're paying for it. And so if you're the customer, then we should treat you like a customer. And I got into North Dakota and I'm like, let's just talk about the things where people interact. And if we had 157 different websites and 157 different locations. If you were a North Dakotan and you got a fishing license, a hunting license, you want to license your boat, your kids go to school, you got a daughter that's going to one of our universities, you're paying taxes, you own property. You got 157 different places to go. You interact with anybody else today's world as a consumer online. You do single sign-on, and we'd be like someone who lived in our state for 40 years, and they'd be like, hey, I want to get a fishing license. We're like, who are you? enter in all your information, please, because now we got a separate database, whatever. So there's just, the government is so far behind. I think 10 to 20% of every job we found in North Dakota, I know it's the same at the federal level, is some mind-numbing, soul-sucking work that state team members or federal employees have to do that they don't want to do. There's good people in government that are trying to do the right thing. Think of law enforcement. Think of other people. Think of our highway patrol. Think of these people. They're state employees, and they get burdened with all this red tape. So we went after red tape. We passed 51 out of 52 red tape reduction bills in North Dakota this year. We crowdsourced ideas from the public. We said, how do we get rid of that? We took $1.7 billion out of a $6 billion general fund budget the first 4 months I was in office, and every train still ran on time. There is so much waste in government. We need someone who's got a business background, who's got a technology background, who can go in and say, look, here's how we can change all this to better serve all of you and lower the cost of government, get rid of some of those 2 million federal employees. It's not about, oh, this is a bad one and this is a good one. Every single one of them has got 10 to 20% of what they're doing that doesn't add any value to any of you. That's about, creating jobs that have purpose and getting those other people back into the private sector, where we have 10 million jobs open in the private sector. Let's get them out of the government, get them back to work.
Get them out of D.C., get them back to work. It can be done, right? I mean, we cut 21 agencies. It's amazing when you start looking under the hood, the amount of bloat and duplication and inefficiencies that are there. I cannot even imagine what we're looking at the federal government, but we do need somebody that's implemented that at the state level and understands how to do it, a business owner that can go in there. I mean, it has to start on day one. We need to get them back into reality, and that means getting them out of Washington, D.C. So I just so appreciate what you're saying. So what's something that the people in Washington, D.C. don't, as we're talking about that, don't really understand about life in places like North Dakota and Iowa and the Midwest? What don't they get?
Well, you mentioned this about how the attack on farmers, but I would say take, waters of the USA, take, the new BLM rules, which just got promulgated recently, take this attack on pickup trucks. I mean, take anything that the Biden administration does. Most of it's on page, like I said, 12 or 18, because they're pushing indictments and keeping that on the front page. But this other stuff that they're doing, not through laws of Congress, but just through executive orders. We have a full-time job as Republican governors. We're the tip of the spear, suing the federal government. We have to say this is not legal, it's not constitutional. And I would say the number one thing the bureaucrats, they think on this stuff they're doing, quote, on the environment, where we're going to just like export, we're going to buy solar panels from China that comes from a factory that's run by coal. We're gonna buy a battery from China where they're tearing up the Congo, moving 500,000 pounds of earth. They call them rare earth minerals for a reason. They're rare. They're like really small quantities, parts per million. They have to move 500,000 pounds of earth in a different country to get enough